Knobbox Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, Process Production and Social Media. Hey knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobbox Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. We're your co-host, Azaria.
And this is Martheya. We hope you enjoyed our conversations last week with Brenda Dixon-Gottschild. This week, we're excited to welcome McKinley Willis. So I first met McKinley at Arts Mission Oak Cliff, which is this artist co-working space in Dallas, Texas. And we had these really great conversations about her career as a professional dancer for Dallas Black Dance Theater, and I knew we needed to have her on this podcast.
Yeah, it was such a wonderful conversation. If you're looking to follow a performance career, she gives wonderful practical advice, and we start to dig deep into a very sensitive but important conversation around body image, and I'm really glad we had that conversation.
So am I. I wasn't expecting it to go there, but I thought it was really important. So McKinley has her BFA in modern dance. She's danced as an apprentice for Bruce Wood Dance Project, and she is now in her 5th season with Dallas Black Dance Theater. So make sure you connect with her on social media and get to know more about her and what her career is like. And of course, we'll link all of this in our show notes. You can check it out at noboxdance.com under season 2 of the podcast.
And without further ado, enjoy the show.
McKinley, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing
great.
good. We're
so
excited
happy to have you.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
I'm so excited to be here.
So to start us off, can you just briefly walk us through your career path and kind of tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Ooh, okay. I am I'm a dancer. I've been dancing for a very long time. I started at 4, like a lot of young female dancers. I began training at Dallas Black Dance Academy. I also trained at Ozoy School of Ballet and eventually Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing Visual Arts. And I trained in the styles of ballet, modern dance, jazz, African, and I attempt to do hip hop sometimes.
Basically everything.
Yeah. And I didn't, even though I had done it for a very long time, I had been dancing for a very long time, I didn't necessarily think I'd do it professionally, not because I didn't think I'd do it professionally because I didn't think I could do it, to be frank. I didn't think I was talented enough to do it. I didn't think I was strong enough to do it.
And did those thoughts come? I know you went to college and you studied dance, so were those thoughts before pursuing higher education? So,
Yeah.
like while you were at Booker T in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't decide that I actually wanted to dance until I was in a junior in college. Not junior in college, junior in high school. I didn't decide I wanted to dance until I was a junior in high school. I just didn't see a place for me in dance.
Why do you think that was? Yeah.
There's so many people who feel that way too. So I'm really glad that we're covering this because I think a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones with that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. I think I felt that way because I was only introduced to one perspective. Like I had all of this training. I've been going to class. Like I was always dedicated to dance. I was in youth companies and had strong leaders and all that, had great teachers and great examples of dance, but I just didn't necessarily see a place for me.
And what did you see? Like, why didn't you see a place for yourself?
I just only had one perspective.
What was that?
It was going to dance. It was being around the same people, being around the same dance environment. The shift happened for me when I went to my first summer intensive.
Okay.
And I was able to leave Dallas. I was able to train with a group of dancers that I had never, met before. And we were 16. So for a lot of us, it was our first summer intensive. And
where was the summer intensive?
Yeah, where were you?
Lions Ballet.
Oh, awesome.
Lions Ballet.
Nice.
And it's so cool. And I'm going to segue just a little bit. It's so cool because a lot of those people that I met at Lions Ballet that I, really looked up to are now in great reputable companies. And I see them from time to time as we're passing, like we may be performing in the same theater. And like, oh, we met when we were 16, 10 years ago.
But, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, that was the first eye-opening experience that made me say, I could do this. I want to do this.
So I'm curious, before, when you said the new environment kind of let you know that there was a place for you, was it before, did you see a lot of yourself and you just thought there wasn't room for another person who was also maybe young and Black and female, or was it?
No, I actually because I grew up at Dallas Black Dance Academy, and we were taught by a lot of the company members who were Black. So I saw a lot of representation. It wasn't representation, it was the art form in and of it. So when I went to Lines, I was introduced to because I'm a very creative mind, and I find a way to create in any way possible. I had not been introduced to the choreographic aspect and the improvisational aspect.
Gotcha. So it was focused on performance, and then when you went to the intensive, you got to. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
You got to practice as an artist, a full artist.
Exactly. So I just I was introduced to that aspect of dance and that perspective of dance, and I was like, oh wow, I want to do this. I want to, like, I still love the performance aspect of things. That's probably the hardest part about dance for me, is like the learning process of preparing for performance. The easier part to me is, the creative part, being able to put, like, once I have the information, be able to put McKinley on top of the information I have.
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense.
So important.
I want to circle back to that a little bit later, McKinley, but could you tell us more about why you wanted to pursue a BFA in modern dance? Because I know that, a lot of professional dancers might not pursue higher education. So I'm just curious why you chose that path.
Education has always been very important to my family. So it was never a question of whether or not I was going to college. It was just, where are you going to college?
Okay.
And my family is, they're always big about a backup plan, always being prepared for whatever's next, which I completely and totally agree, because I think that's just smart. And I also, my family will tell me all the time, they're like, you would make a great this, you make a great that, you make a great this. And I'm like, I know, because I'm, especially dance in particular, has prepared me for any route that I want to take in life.
Right.
So
what do you think are some of those characteristics that have prepared you for any kind of avenue that you want to go down?
The discipline, being able to sustain myself in very excruciating circumstances, or very not excruciating, that's a bad word. Very very challenging circumstances, like in dance.
Like physically, or
I'm sorry?
Do you mean physically challenging or mentally challenging?
Probably more, all around. Like,
all of
the above, because dance is all of them. Like, the physical part is hard about dance. The spiritual and mental part about dance is even harder. It's like having that that thing in your mind that that makes you go further than what you are naturally able to do.
I'm curious, did your tribe, I guess we can call it, kind of help guide you in your performance companies that you chose to go with Bruce Wood Dance and Dallas Black? Or was there something else that kind of drew you to these companies?
Well, I've had a long relationship with both companies. What drew me or what guided me have always been authority figures, within those organizations or associated with those organizations. I had a teacher at Booker T, um, Dr. James, Dr. Linda James, and she said, "Hey, this is me in high school, my senior year of high school." She said, "Hey, are you gonna go to that Bruce Wood audition?" And I was like, um, "No, I wasn't planning on it." She goes, "You need to go to that audition." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I got to that audition, and I'm thinking, like, I know like, I've heard of Bruce Wood, I worked with him. He had come to Booker T and, like, set a piece, and he was intense, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I can handle that," you know? And I auditioned, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it. He
You
was
didn't get it.
I didn't. I was auditioning for an apprenticeship, and, I didn't get it, but I got this really long rejection letter
Huh.
that was probably the most valuable thing to me because it gave me so much information. I got corrections that I was like, "Wait, you don't get corrections during an audition?"
Wow,
Wait,
yeah.
so
That's
they
amazing.
they
Right.
provided
I was like,
feedback to
"What
you.
so I was just grateful for the feedback. But then
Wow.
3 weeks later, maybe a month later, they had a dancer drop out, and they called me and said, "Hey, are you still interested?" And I said,
Wow.
"Absolutely."
That's
Wow.
amazing, and good for you for going to the audition.
Yes, you just have to
You didn't get
show
it
up.
right away, and then wow,
Yeah.
that's a
So
great
that's
story.
Yeah, show up to the thing.
you gotta show up. But if it weren't for Dr. James coming to me, it takes people seeing something in you and saying, "You could do this. You should
Right.
go for it." You know? And the same thing happened with Dallas Black Dance Theater. Um, After I graduated from college, I remember Miss Williams came to me. She goes, "Yeah, I'll see you at the audition." And I said, "All right." So I'm going to the audition. I mean, that wasn't even a question. I said,
Right.
"All right then." When the artistic founder and artistic director says, "Hey, I'll see you at the audition," you go to the audition.
You are listening to Navox Dance.
How have you situated yourself within your network?
Right.
Because it's you went to school in Dallas, and then it's interesting. It's pretty rare, I feel like, to come and perform with Dallas Black Dance Theater. A lot of the company members aren't from Dallas,
Yeah.
so it seems like you've really created this network here in Dallas. And can you talk a little bit about that, creating your network?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, I created most of my network from middle school to high school, and I still kept my connection and my relationship with Dallas Black and Bruce Wood um, when I was in college. But for the most part, when I was in college, I was in college. And when I was, except for during the summertime, I'd still come back through and take class and stuff like that. Um, I went to college at the University of Oklahoma, as you mentioned before. And I could have I had the opportunity to build more of a network in Oklahoma, so I could have had that. But there's no dance community in Oklahoma. So, though I
Like
got
aside from the university?
yes. So though I had amazing teachers and got great training, what I needed was the network. So if I were to do anything differently, um, upon or what I would recommend to anyone, any people considering where you're going to college, location, location, location.
Mhm.
I would have put myself in New York no matter what, um, simply because I would have expanded my network, you know?
So is that something you're saying you wish you would have
That's
done,
something
or
I don't regret any decision I've made only because I've learned from them. But if I were to do something differently, I would probably have done that. And I
do
have a
you think
younger.
there was a big benefit for going to Oklahoma because then you were able to keep up your connection with the Dallas community because it's closer? I don't.
No, I don't think that would have shifted too much, because I still would have come home for the summers.
Okay,
I still
that
would have
makes
been
sense.
home for the
Mhm.
summers. And I have plenty of they're now colleagues and things who still come home from the summers. They still have their relationship with Dallas Black. And they're dancing in school in Juilliard, like building their connections in the New York. So I would have had two very strong networks, I think, if I'd have gone to New York for school.
That makes sense. So can we
McKinley, I
circle
have a
back to the
question.
topic? Go
I have a
ahead,
question
Azaria.
for McKinley.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about kind of advice for performers or people who are interested. I'm really curious. I know you have this great network and support system, but if
Mhm.
you have any specific advice for women of color who are trying to do the same thing, because
Mm.
I just feel like there's a bit of a different maybe path or some different challenges. And I'm curious to see if you had any of those challenges and how you overcame them.
I'm a
Hmm.
pretty optimistic person. I mean,
Hmm.
for example, when I was in middle school, I would show the kids African dance
Hmm.
and they'd laugh and they'd be like, "Hey, yo, McKinley, show me that African dance again." And I do it. I'm like, "Yeah, it's so great." And I didn't realize
Oh,
in middle school that they were making fun of me, but I was like,
right.
until maybe college, and I was reflecting on that story, and I said, "Wait a minute." Um, and of course, I laugh at it now, but now those same people who are making fun of me, that they're like, "Yo, McKinley, you really doing this dance thing? Like you're doing it. Like you're
Right.
you're really good." I'm like, "Yeah."
Right.
No. Um, but um, yeah, I'm kind of naive to if I'm being judged because of what and who I am. And also I've been raised by a tribe of really strong Black women. And like my mom has four sisters and they are trailblazers. They are
Mm.
firecrackers in everything that they do. So I've followed by example. And I feel that same way about the women that I work with because I do work for a Black dance company. So see the example that they set. Miss Williams has had Dallas Black Dance Theater for 43 years. And sorry, not 43. The Academy has been around for 45 years. So she's been at this thing for a minute before, it was even fathomable for most, Black women. So like
Mhm.
it's astonishing to me. And I guess I just don't I haven't seen too many challenges. If anything, it's worked in my advantage because people
That's
are trying to meet
awesome.
their quota.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, that's awesome in a kind of a downside way, but I'm
yeah,
glad it worked out for you.
yeah.
But in honor of Black History Month, you've kind of listed all these great Black women who've inspired you. Are there any other dancers or choreographers maybe that you know or don't know that have kind of inspired you to pursue dance?
Don't forget to say no to the box.
I look at dancers or one dancer in particular, Camille A. Brown,
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God.
and the stride. Like I mean, and I'm gonna be candid in saying I don't follow her work all the time,
Hmm.
and it's really not my style. But how she presents and carries herself.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the work that she's doing on Broadway, I want to do that. You
Yeah.
know, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, she's doing it. I could do that. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think in the name she's making for herself. Oh, also, there's one woman in particular. She was a graduate of Booker T, and I believe she's teaching at UT Austin now in the dance department. Her name is Giselle Mason. I
Oh,
don't know if you've heard of
yes.
her.
Yes.
I remember in high school she came and did a one-woman show. I'm like, who does a one-woman show?
Yes.
But she did a one-woman dance show, and it was
Awesome.
like 3 or 4 solos, and it just went. And I was like, again, not all of it was my taste, but there's one piece in particular. It was like how to do a dance or make a dance class. I don't know. I still remember it though.
Hmm.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
she joined
wow,
their faculty, what was it, like 2 years ago? I
yeah.
remember reading an article about her in her work.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate how you are also saying that you appreciate these people for who they are, even though it's not your style. I like
Mhm.
also as a Black person, I think a lot of times people expect us to love everything that every Black person's ever made because it's like, well, like that's how you support. But it's like, no, you can still support people doing the thing and
Mhm.
it could still not be your thing. Like we're not a monolith. So I'm not trying
Right.
to monolith this question. So I really appreciate you like giving your ode to the people who are doing the thing, even though
Mhm.
it might not be your thing.
And another local choreographer who's just been everywhere lately. She just developed her own dance company. It may be a year in the making now, but Bridget Moore.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
she was for a period of time artistic director at Dallas Black Dance Theater, and in that time, I definitely got to um, work with her very closely, um, and just seeing her work, grow, prosper, and how passionate she is about what she does. It's very, very inspiring. And like,
Mhm.
she before she came back to Dallas, she was in Korea, and then before then she was at Booker T, and then before then I think she was in this could be wrong. I think she was in Philly. But yeah, she's just been, and then she originally danced with Ron K. Brown for I think 10 years. So she's kind of like a trailblazer, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
I have the privilege that I'm really excited to be able to come to the Artist Expedition, which is an event that you're going to be hosting. Could you talk to our audience more about what is the Artist Expedition and what is the process of creating this expedition?
Yes, of course. I decided to do the artist expedition because, I went to Booker T, which had a really large cumulative arts community. Then I went to OU, who also was kind of conservative. I can't speak. Conservatory like.
Uh-huh.
So it was, I know all the arts were intermingled. And then I reached my professional career and I get 2 to 3 years into the company and I'm like, something's off. And I
And
can't
this is
quite
two
put
to
my
three
finger on it.
years with Dallas Black,
Well, I'm sorry.
right? This is 2 to 3 years within
Yeah.
Dallas Black Dance
I'm
Theater.
2 to
Okay.
3 years into dancing with Dallas Black Dance Theater. And I'm thinking something's off. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I realized I just needed to stretch my creative muscle more. And I was like, where are all the other artists? Where are the musicians? Where are the, you know, artists? Where are the actors? I was like, I was missing that community.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I should create one because there isn't really, each medium has their own little pockets of community. Like I know a
Right.
lot of dancers and musicians know a lot of musicians, but there wasn't like a one-stop shop for all artists that I knew of. So I decided to create the Artist Expedition, which is a guided improv jam that is open to all art mediums, including but not limited to dance, music, photography, videography, visual art, graphic design, basically whatever you art, you can, whatever you art, that's not a real thing.
I like that though. Whatever you art.
Whatever you art, you can bring it to the Artist Expedition, bring whatever tools you need, and we're gonna create. Um, I provide the ambiance, meaning I put a tracking of music together.
Yes, I saw you working on it the other
Yeah.
day.
Put a tracking of music together, and then as it's going on, I speak through the mic and just put ideas or leave ideas for people to ponder on as they're creating. You can either come with a project that you've been working on or nothing at all. Just be like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm just going to be available. And yeah, and people come. I've had people come and wanting to be spectators or deciding to be spectators, and I'm wondering, oh, maybe they just enjoy watching what's happening. I find out later. I had a friend that came through, and she was like, "Yeah, my boyfriend, he just sat and watched, but he said after he left, he went home and journaled for like a while because he was really inspired by what was happening." So it's like, wow, I didn't even know that effect was had on this person who was just spectating.
Right.
And it's
Speaking
also
of
go ahead.
spectators, how can people stay connected with the Artist Expedition? Do you do any live streaming of this, or is it you have to be there? Is it speakeasy wise? How can they find their way to this?
There's no live streaming. I've thought about it, but I would really love for the experience to be for the people at the event. I mean,
Focusing on the live experience.
I mean, I may do a live eventually, maybe one day sometime, as like a little blurb or a little blip. But for the most part, I let the information out pretty early, or as early as I know the information, via Instagram or Facebook, pretty much, yeah. And then I'm working on doing an email blast as well. A lot of non-dancers will look at me and say, "Hey, your body is perfect." It's, and for a normal everyday person, like I absolutely love my body. I think it's, I think it's great no matter what state it's in. But in order to fit into certain um, categories or certain uh, companies or certain body types, and you do have to look a certain way, and it's way smaller than the average human being. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand unless you're in the thick of the dance community.
Right.
But I've always been hippie, or at least since high school, I've always been hippie. I've always had big legs, and I've learned and had to go through a lot of trial and error of how my body works, how it functions. Luckily, I haven't had any really significant like diseases, like the dysmorphia. I've had any dysmorphia. Thank God, because dysmorphia is a disease.
Right.
That's or a disorder. Luckily, I haven't dealt with any of that, but I've definitely had friends who have, and it's not pretty to look at. And I think education is so important. Like when it comes to knowing how the body works. That's why when I teach,
Mm-hmm.
I teach my kids how certain things should work physically.
Like
Rather than-
Anatomical, yeah.
rather than what they should look like. Yeah.
Yes. Because everyone in fitness knows that like you're not going to be able to maintain your body the same way. It ebbs and flows.
Right.
Depending on what your goal is, it's like if you're trying to make a huge defect, you can do it, but know that it'll only last a certain amount of time before your body, has equilibrium or starts to reverse, even though you're keeping consistent with your routine.
And I think there's just been a huge shift, in the dance world to begin with, now taking these fitness approaches. So like you see on Instagram, professional dancers showing their training that they do at the gym. So this idea of cross training, which which wasn't as publicized, or I don't even know, I can't speak personally, but from research, it looks like it didn't really exist before, aside from some somatic practices and things like that. So I think it's really important, like this conversation about like fitness, like you said. So like, what are other ways you think people can educate themselves?
Or if you had like one thing to say to someone who's feeling like they are not fitting the mold or they're not feeling good about their bodies, if there's like one thing that you could say to them or piece of advice that you could give to them, what would it be?
Create, discuss, and advocate for art. No box dance.
I'd say be patient, find what works for you, and use trial and error. I've gone through several phases where I'm like, okay, I need to look like this. So let me try A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And my body changes drastically. Or not drastically, but it changes in the ways that I want it to change. But I'm like, it was hard keeping up with A through G. And I don't know which one worked more efficiently. So it took me a while to figure out, okay, I just only need to do A and B at the moment and see how that makes me feel. When I did that, I was like, wow, just making that one shift changed my body without me being stressed out about doing so much.
Right.
And I was able to do trial and error, and also recognizing that changing up your routine every once in a while is going to help. It's going to be what helps you be consistent. Like eventually, if I'm doing Pilates all the time, my body will eventually plateau and won't make another shift until I shock my body again into doing something else like, I don't know, the HIIT, high intensity interval training.
Yeah. Right.
Or try doing yoga or, so you kind of have to switch up your routine a little too. So it's just knowing your body, being patient. That's.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kinley. We definitely want to have some training experts and people who are doctors and things like that on our podcast too, so they can speak more on some of these topics, because hearing you bring it up reminds me, I guess, just like how important these conversations really are.
Yes.
So as we wrap up our podcast, we have what's called our Flash 4 portion, where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash. Azaria, do you want to take this one?
Sure. McKinley, are you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay, let's do this.
Flash 4.
If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be? Book, podcast, website, blog, YouTube, somebody to follow.
Yoga with Adrian.
Yoga. I love yoga with Adrian. Yes. I'm always sharing her stuff. Okay, number 2. What was the first dance you saw?
I can't remember the exact dance, but I do know it was. Oh, lies. Nutcracker.
Oh, Nutcracker. Okay, good. Okay. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Both.
Okay. And what is your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Instagram. Thank you, McKinley.
Thanks, McKinley. This was such a wonderful conversation. It was really cool to talk with you in this new way outside of our work environment. Well, thanks, you guys. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll link everything in the show notes.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.